On December 25, 2025, at exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, IndiGo Flight 6E460 from Bengaluru touched down outside Mumbai, on ground that did not exist 8 years earlier. Beneath that runway lies a drained coastal wetland, a vanished riverbed, and the remains of a 92-meter mountain of solid rock, shaved down to a platform barely 8 meters above the sea. None of it is visible from the cabin window. So why did India have to rebuild the surface of the Earth just to land one airplane? The answer begins 35 kilometers to the northwest. Mumbai's old airport, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International, moves more than 54 million passengers a year, and it does so, in effect, on a single runway at a time. Its two runways cross each other. Whenever an aircraft occupies the intersection, the other runway must stop. It holds records for the busiest single runway operations on Earth, more than 1,000 takeoffs and landings squeezed into a single day. But no radar, no software, no amount of money can overcome intersecting geometry. And the airport is sealed in on every side by one of the densest cities on the planet. India's financial capital was not short of demand. It was running out of sky. Pull up the map. Southeast of Mumbai, across the harbor, lies Ulwe, 1,160 hectares of tidal flats and mangroves, an area the size of roughly 1,600 soccer fields. In the middle of it stood Ulwe Hill, 92 meters of hard rock, 1.6 kilometers long, 1.2 kilometers wide, sitting exactly where the runways needed to go. Cutting across the southern half ran the Ulwe River. Around the edges, 10 villages and high-voltage transmission lines carrying electricity into Mumbai. On paper, this was one of the worst imaginable places to build an airport. It was also the last piece of land at this scale the region had left. The project itself is older than most of its passengers. First proposed in 1997, approved by the government in 2007, it then stalled for a decade. Over land, over money, and over the roughly 3,500 families living in those 10 villages. Construction finally began in June 2017, with scientists from India's CSIR-CIMFR Mining Institute brought in to plan the demolition of the hill. Even the project's leadership changed mid-flight. The GVK Group won the concession in 2017. The Adani Group acquired it in 2021 and drove the project to the finish line. And from the very first blast, one fact would matter more than any other for the rest of the story. Almost nothing about this ground could carry weight. The hill was too hard, the swamp was too soft. Both problems had to be solved with the same material. The warnings came early. Environmental groups went to court, arguing the site sat on a flood-prone coastal wetland, the kind of terrain Mumbai had paved over before and paid for. The cases moved slowly. The blasting did not. Explosives went off up to 3 times a day, some detonations barely 100 meters from occupied homes. Stones flew as far as 200 meters, into the village of Ulwe, through roofs, and into a nearby school. Walls cracked. In October 2017, thousands of residents marched and brought the site to a standstill, demanding rehabilitation before demolition. Work resumed. Then on January 6, 2018, a blast triggered a landslide that injured 5 engineers, 2 of them severely. In Siddharth Nagar, at the foot of the hill, falling stones bruised 5 women, and a 7-year-old boy playing outside his house needed 2 stitches in his head. The signs were all there. This project was moving faster than the people in its path. Here is a question worth holding on to. If your city's future required flattening a mountain next to someone else's village, how close is too close? The engineering answer to the hill was patience, measured in milliseconds. Crews drilled a dense grid of boreholes across the rock and fired the charges in delayed sequences, fractions of a second apart, so the mountain fractured from within instead of shaking the villages around it. According to CSIR-CIMFR, roughly 62 million cubic meters of rock came down this way. Enough broken rock to fill roughly 24,000 Olympic swimming pools. Every load had a destination. The broken rock was hauled straight onto the swamp and stacked as a crushing surcharge. Beneath it, machines had already pushed hundreds of thousands of prefabricated vertical drains, long plastic wicks, down through the waterlogged mud to firmer soil. Under the weight of the dead mountain, the trapped water had exactly one way out, up through the wicks, into collection trenches, and out to sea. The mud compressed, the land hardened. Then came the river, The Ulway was forced through a 90-degree turn into a new artificial channel, widened in places from 25 meters to 200 meters. Its critical bends armored with steel sheet pile walls driven deep into the soft ground. Cofferdams choked the old riverbed until it ran dry, and the trucks filled it with rock. Only when the settlement gauges on the compacted platform finally went still could crews pave the 3,700-meter runway itself, jointed concrete slabs locked together with steel dowel bars, built to absorb wide-body jets slamming down at roughly 250 kilometers per hour, and to expand in India's heat without cracking. There is a detail in all of this that almost nobody mentions. That swamp was not wasted land. Tidal flats and mangroves are a coastline's sponge. They swallow monsoon water. Much of that sponge is now sealed under compacted rock, and the villages beside the airport are asking an uncomfortable question. Where does the water go now? Mumbai has run this experiment before. Wetlands around the old airport were built over, and in the record monsoon of 2005, a disaster with many causes, the runways there drowned. The widened river channel is the engineer's answer. The monsoon will grade it. For now, the winners are easy to see. On opening day, more than 4,000 passengers walked through a terminal designed by Zaha Hadid architects. A lotus of steel and glass blooming over a buried river, engineered to shrug off storms from the Arabian Sea. Phase 1 alone adds capacity for 20 million passengers a year, and property prices in Ulway and Panvel have surged since 2020 as an entire airport city rises around the site. The losers are quieter. Thousands of displaced families are still negotiating what fair compensation means. Environmental assessments count more than 100 hectares of mangroves and roughly 400 hectares of tidal mudflats destroyed, wetlands that once held flocks of flamingos. And the stakes reach far beyond one coastline. With a second airport, Mumbai joins London, New York, and Tokyo in the small club of true multi-airport cities. The infrastructure signature of a financial capital that intends to compete globally. A city that spent decades trapped by 2 crossing strips of concrete has bought itself room to grow for a generation. That growth, though, is still mostly a promise. What opened in December is 1 runway and 1 terminal, the second parallel runway and 3 more terminals. The full 90 million passenger vision are planned toward the early 2030s, and every phase must cross the same soft ground the first one did. Before any of that, a nearer test is coming. The first full monsoon over the finished airport. Hydraulic models say the new river channel and raised platform will hold. Models said reassuring things about Mumbai's terrain before 2005 too. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the airport on October 8, 2025, as proof of what India can build. The coastline has not yet delivered its own verdict. So the question this airport leaves behind is not technical. A mountain, a river, 10 villages, and hundreds of hectares of coastal wetland. Was that an acceptable price for unlocking one of the world's great cities? Or a bill that nature has simply not yet presented? 20 million passengers a year will fly over the answer without ever seeing it. It is sealed under the runway.